If you want to learn more about all the new artifacts coming to New World Aeternum, including what they are, what the perks are, and where to get them, then this video is for you. If you enjoy the video, be sure to like it as well as give a subscribe to the channel because I have a whole lot more New World Aeternum content coming soon to you guys. So let's go ahead and jump into the first new artifact that we know of, which is called Grace, which is a new Greatsword artifact. Now, what's pretty cool about this artifact is the fact that it has a unique perk known as offensive speed, which calls out that when you enter offensive stance, you gain 6 seconds of a 20% movement speed, which honestly could be pretty helpful for those light builds that are a bit more chasey and also just speeding up overall PvE content. It could be pretty interesting as well as you guys have a few of these in M3 expeditions if you guys are pushing for certain times or scores for the PvE leaderboards. Now, in order to get this Grace artifact, it is actually just on the season pass. So this is actually one of the easiest ones to get out of the brand new 8 artifacts that are coming to the game. It's probably going to be within the first 20 to 50 levels, if I had to guess, in regards to when you actually unlock it. But I would not stress too much about how to actually unlock this one because chances are you'll just naturally do this as you progress your character. Next up, we have the Power Stone Flail artifact. This one also has a pretty cool ability that calls out the fact that if your health is above 90%, then attacks cause a 20% weaken for 5 seconds. Weaken is a huge debuff on your enemies, and honestly, this artifact I can see could potentially be utilized in not only PvE content, but also PvP content. A lot of flail users tend to be heavy or a little bit tankier than the typical build, and they tend to jump into large clumps. So honestly, if you can maintain your health above 90%, which a lot of tanks can do, honestly, and still dish off some damage, then you can definitely debuff a large clump of enemies, making it great for large scale PvP content, whether it's OPRs or honestly even wars. In order to unlock the Power Stone artifact, you actually have to complete a soul trial. So within New World Database, you can actually get full information on all these artifacts. And for this one specifically, it just lists off all of the individual soul trials that you can do after you complete them, I believe, at a little bit more of a difficult challenge. So yeah, once you hit level 65, I recommend revisiting some of these soul trials and just running them in hopes of picking up this Power Stone Flail artifact. Next up, I'm going to butcher this name, but it honestly looks amazing, is the new Warhammer artifact known as Trsna. The Trsna artifact has a new perk known as Consume, where it actually provides you a 25% lifesteal versus knockdown foes. I'm not sure how helpful this honestly will be because even if you do knock down your foes, they're going to be back up within a second or two. Um, Maybe pairing this with Spear just because of all of its crowd control abilities that it also has, like sweep and things along those lines that it might pair well with. But again, I'm not sure how much this one will be utilized. It will be interesting for sure. Maybe some bruisers might pick this up if they are running a typical Great Axe and just wanted to use a Warhammer artifact and just pick up some extra perks. But again, I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm going to see a ton of gameplay when it comes to this one, but only time will tell. If you want to unlock this artifact, you actually have to defeat one of the bosses within the Hive of Gorgons, which is one of the brand new raid events that are coming to New World Aeternum. So if you want this, be sure to check that out and grind through it with a ready to go group. Next up, we have a new ring artifact known as the Elemental Band. This has a new perk known as Elemental Affinity. It calls out that when you hit a target with elemental damage attack, does not trigger when it's a DOT or attunement, you gain a 4% empower for 6 seconds. This does have a 10-second cooldown, but it's interesting because it's per damage type. So what's interesting is, like, let's say you are a mage and you utilize the fire staff and the ice gauntlet. If you attack with your fire staff and then swap over to your Ice Gauntlet, I believe that means that you will have 2 stacks of Empower once you actually land that attack on your enemy. So it's definitely a bit of a interesting perk. If you add elemental gems to your weapons too, I think you can pick up on this additional damage output as well. If you want to get the elemental band artifact, then you once again have to defeat a boss within the Hive of Gorgons raid that is coming soon. So again, it's definitely worth doing that new PvE raid because you can get a chance at a few of these artifacts. I believe there's another one on the list as well that you have to do in order to unlock it. Next up, we have the Cowl of Power, which is a light head. And this one actually is very interesting and caught my attention. It has the Desperate Energy perk that calls out that if you're hit by an enemy while your mana is below 50%, you gain 4 seconds of a 25% increased damage. And that's a 10-second cooldown for that. 25% increased damage is a huge amount of damage, honestly. But again, if you're maxed out and have all of your passives and great gear and attributes in the right areas, then mana really should not be a huge issue for you. Maybe you can play around with your build to try to hit below that 50% threshold a little bit easier on purpose, just so you can get that empowerment. But again, it's going to be a very specific build that really utilizes mana to get the most out of this artifact. If you want the Cowl of Power, it is similar to the Grace artifact. Well, it will actually be within Season 6 reward track. So again, just naturally progressing your character, you'll be gaining up a ton of season XP, and you'll likely just naturally unlock this artifact over time. Next up, another interesting one is called the Survivor's Coat, which is a heavy chest piece that is coming to the game. And of course, just like its name, its perk is called Survive. If you get hit while your health is below 50%, you gain 50 stamina, you lose all of your debuffs, and you gain a potion surge that will recharge your next healing potion instantly. This is honestly a very, very powerful perk. You can see that it also has 2 pretty strong perks associated with it, one being Enchanted Ward and the other being Refreshing. And it just seems like that stamina boost will be extremely helpful. There are rumors that stamina recovery is going to be debuffed quite a bit as well in New World Aeternum, making this perk even more sought after and a potential great fit for some PvP bruisers out there. If you want to pick up the Survivor's Coat, then you will actually have to utilize the new Doubloon PvP currency that is coming to the game, where you'll be able to exchange a certain amount of doubloons for this artifact at a new NPC that offers a exchange shop for these new pieces of currency for different items. Next up, we have the Azoth Conductors. Once again, if you want this one, you will have to take down a boss in the Hive of Gorgons PvE raid that is coming to the game. So again, totally worth doing this PvE raid, especially in Season 6, because you will have a chance of getting 1 of 3 artifacts if you take down all the different bosses within the actual raid itself. The primary perk for this is called Magician's Boon. If you are in a medium equip weight, then you deal 15% more elemental damage. This could be interesting, especially for Fire Staff users that might want to play around with a medium build and just be a little bit tankier. It will be interesting to see how this one is utilized. And again, 2 pretty good perks that are paired with it, one being health and the other being refreshing, which are definitely usable when it comes to magic focused and just light builds in general that really focus on that elemental damage output. If you want to pick up the Azoth Conductors, then again, you will have to take down 1 of the 3 bosses within the Hive of Gorgons. I do recommend checking out some online guides and just reading more about this new PvE raid once we get some more information about it. I definitely will have a video coming soon on that as well, so stay tuned for more information on that. Last but certainly not least is the Ghostly Touch artifact, which is a pair of medium gloves. This one has a very interesting one, and honestly, I'm most excited about this last artifact here, based on its new perk called Ghostly Embrace. It calls out that when you hit an empowered foe, dispel 2 of their empowers and give yourself 10 seconds of 10% empower, and there's a 4% cooldown, and that's paired with both enchanted and refreshing perks. This is honestly very interesting and probably very usable for both light, medium, and I don't want to say heavy just because of its weight class, but probably primarily light and medium builds. Because let's face it, every enemy that you hit in a PvP setting likely has at least 1 or 2 forms of empower, just because nowadays you can get empower from a large variety of different items, making this build actually pretty usable in PvP settings. Again, I'm not sure how this would actually work in PvE situations. I do know that certain PvE foes can empower themselves as well, but I'm not sure if this will actually transfer over in PvE settings. Time will tell. If you want to pick up the Ghostly Touch artifact, then you will have to actually capitalize on the brand new PvP area that is coming to Cutlass Keys, because you will have to pick this up through the new Doubloon exchange. Again, there's going to be a handful of new chests. You'll take down players in this area, and there's a handful of new activities that you can do in this area where you can pick up the new currency, which are these doubloons. Once you have a certain amount of doubloons, you can go to a specific NPC in Cutlass Keys and exchange them for one of these artifacts, one of the 2 artifacts I called out actually, Ghostly Touch and the Survivor's Coat. Or you can select a handful of other options that are in the shop, but more info on that coming soon as well. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. It really does help me out. If you made it this far in the video, please consider doing so. It just tells me that it's worth pushing out content like this. Thanks again, guys, and stay tuned for a whole lot more of New World Aeternum content coming soon. Catch you guys later.